The silence that once blanketed Tel Aviv's residential blocks was shattered in seconds. At approximately 3:17 a.m., the Iraqi Qaswa missile tore through the night sky, bypassing Israel's layered defense systems and slamming into a densely populated neighborhood near Ramat Gan. The explosion wasn't just loud, it was seismic. Windows shattered across a 3-block radius, car alarms wailed in unison, and the air filled with acrid smoke and dust. Residents stumbled out of their homes, dazed and barefoot, some clutching children, others dragging elderly relatives. The missile's impact left a crater nearly 12 feet deep, surrounded by scorched concrete and twisted rebar. What had been a quiet street lined with cafes and corner stores now resembled a war zone. Contrast that with the city's usual rhythm. Tel Aviv is known for its vibrant nightlife, tech startups, and beachside calm. But in those first moments after the strike, all that was suspended. Emergency sirens blared as first responders rushed in. Firefighters battled flames, licking the sides of apartment buildings, while medics set up triage zones in parking lots. The Qaswa missile, reportedly a cruise-type weapon with advanced guidance systems, had found its mark with chilling precision. Israeli officials later confirmed that the Iron Dome had failed to intercept it, raising serious questions about the system's vulnerability to newer missile technologies. By sunrise, the damage was undeniable. Over 40 homes were either destroyed or rendered uninhabitable. Power lines dangled like vines, and water mains burst, flooding basements and streets. Yet amid the chaos, there was resilience. Neighbors helped each other evacuate, shared supplies, and comforted the injured. Tel Aviv had been hit hard, but it hadn't been broken. As daylight spread across Tel Aviv, the full scope of the damage came into view. Drone footage revealed a jagged scar across the city's skyline. Entire rooftops peeled away, balconies collapsed, and streets littered with debris. The Qaswa missile hadn't just struck homes, it had struck confidence. For years, Tel Aviv had been considered a fortress of modernity, shielded by cutting-edge defense systems and geopolitical deterrence. But now that illusion had cracked. The missile's trajectory, reportedly launched from western Iraq, had exploited a blind spot in Israel's radar coverage. Military analysts scrambled to explain how a low-flying cruise missile could evade detection and deliver such devastation. The psychological impact was immediate. Schools across the city were closed indefinitely, and thousands of residents were relocated to emergency shelters. Social media flooded with images of children clutching stuffed animals in underground bunkers. Elderly couples staring at the rubble that used to be their living rooms. The contrast was stark. Tel Aviv's reputation as a tech hub and cultural capital now collided with scenes reminiscent of wartime Baghdad or Aleppo. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, launched a rapid investigation, deploying engineers and intelligence officers to the blast site. Within hours, prime ministerial statements framed the attack as an act of war, while opposition leaders demanded accountability for the defense lapse. International reactions poured in. The U.S. condemned the strike, while European leaders called for restraint. But inside Tel Aviv, restraint was hard to come by. Anger simmered beneath the surface, directed not just at Iraq, but at the perceived failure of Israel's defense apparatus. The Qaswa missile had done more than destroy buildings. It had punctured a sense of invincibility, and in its wake, Tel Aviv was left grappling with a new reality: vulnerability. In the days following the strike, Tel Aviv's streets became a mosaic of survival. Makeshift shelters sprang up in school gymnasiums and community centers, where families huddled together under fluorescent lights and donated blankets. Volunteers distributed food, water, and medical supplies, while psychologists offered trauma counseling to children who hadn't spoken since the blast. The stories that surfaced were harrowing. A young mother, Miriam, had shielded her 2-year-old with her own body as their apartment collapsed. A retired teacher named Eli dug through rubble with his bare hands to rescue a neighbor trapped beneath a fallen ceiling. These weren't just anecdotes, they were testaments to the city's grit. The contrast between Tel Aviv's modern infrastructure and its sudden descent into emergency mode was jarring. Just a week earlier, the city had hosted an international tech summit. Now those same venues were repurposed as aid stations. The Qaswa missile had disrupted more than buildings. It had fractured routines, displaced thousands, and forced a reckoning with preparedness. Yet amid the chaos, something remarkable happened. Solidarity. Religious and secular communities, often divided by politics, came together. Arab and Jewish residents worked side by side to clear debris and deliver supplies. The missile hadn't discriminated, and neither did the response. Media coverage shifted from shock to admiration. International outlets highlighted Tel Aviv's resilience, while local journalists focused on the grassroots efforts that kept the city afloat. Donations poured in from across the country, and even rival political factions agreed to fast-track emergency funding. The city's heartbeat, though bruised, remained steady. And as reconstruction plans began to take shape, one thing became clear. Tel Aviv wasn't waiting for permission to heal. It was already rebuilding, physically, emotionally, and collectively. The Qaswa missile didn't just expose vulnerabilities. It triggered a strategic recalibration. Within 48 hours of the strike, Israel's security cabinet convened in an emergency session, flanked by military chiefs and intelligence directors. Classified briefings revealed that the missile had likely been launched from a mobile platform deep within Iraqi territory, possibly with Iranian logistical support. That revelation sent shockwaves through the region. Tel Aviv's devastation was now a flashpoint in a broader geopolitical chess game. Defense analysts warned that the Qaswa's range and precision marked a new era in asymmetric warfare, one where non-state actors or proxy forces could bypass conventional deterrence. The Israeli Air Force responded swiftly. Surveillance drones buzzed over suspected launch zones, while cyber units targeted communications networks linked to militant groups. Yet the government faced a dilemma: retaliate and risk escalation, or absorb the blow and reinforce defenses. Public sentiment leaned heavily toward action. In Tel Aviv, rallies formed outside government buildings, demanding accountability and stronger protection. The contrast was stark. Citizens who once debated tech policy and housing prices now chanted for missile shields and military reform. International diplomacy intensified. The United Nations called for restraint, while regional powers braced for fallout. Jordan and Egypt increased border security, and Gulf states quietly reviewed their own missile defense systems. Meanwhile, Israeli engineers worked around the clock to upgrade radar arrays and recalibrate Iron Dome algorithms. The Qaswa missile had exposed a blind spot, but it also galvanized innovation. Defense contractors accelerated development of laser-based interception systems, and military academies revised training protocols to account for low-altitude cruise threats. Tel Aviv, though wounded, had become a catalyst. The city's suffering was now shaping national policy, regional alliances, and the future of urban defense. The missile had landed, but its ripple effects were only beginning. Weeks after the missile strike, Tel Aviv remains in a state of guarded recovery. Construction crews work around the clock, clearing rubble and rebuilding homes with reinforced materials. The city's skyline, once marked by sleek towers and Bauhaus architecture, now includes scaffolding and cranes, a visual reminder of both destruction and determination. Residents have returned, slowly, cautiously. Children play in reopened parks under the watchful eyes of parents, and cafes serve coffee again, though conversations often drift back to that night. The trauma lingers, but so does resolve. Government reforms are underway. A new missile defense task force has been established, charged with integrating AI-driven threat detection and expanding coverage zones. Civil defense drills have become routine, and public awareness campaigns teach citizens how to respond to future attacks. The Qaswa missile didn't just change Tel Aviv, it changed Israel's defense doctrine. Military academies now include case studies on the strike, and defense contractors are racing to develop countermeasures for cruise-type threats. The city's pain has become a blueprint for national resilience. But beyond policy and infrastructure, the strike reshaped identity. Tel Aviv, often seen as a bubble of modernity and liberalism, was reminded of its place in a volatile region. The contrast between its cosmopolitan image and the raw vulnerability exposed by the missile is now part of its narrative. And yet that contrast has forged a deeper unity. Citizens who once felt detached from national security now engage with it. The city's wounds have become a shared experience. binding communities across divides. As Tel Aviv rebuilds, it does so with eyes wide open. The Qaswa missile was a wake-up call, violent, precise, and unforgettable. But in its aftermath, the city didn't just survive, it adapted. And in that adaptation lies its strength.